I would like to introduce our honored guest tonight, Shekhar Kapur. Hello.
Hey.
You know, in the process of doing the research for this conversation, as I was looking at the entirety of your life, there was a quote that resonated with me when I was in my early 20s.
I don't like the word entirety. It looks like life's ended.
No, sorry about that.
All right. Okay.
But no, there was this this quote from Joseph Campbell that he said when he was being interviewed by Bill Moyers, and he said, either you say yes to the snake or no to the snake, yes to the adventure or no to the adventure. And he said, and I said yes to it all. And I feel as though, as I'm looking at what's gone on in your life, that at some point you did say yes to the adventure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's yes. I said no to career.
Mm-hmm.
I said no to the known. I said no to anything that was smacked off me having a mapped out life. And I said yes to the unknown. If you say yes to the unknown, it is a kind of an adventure. And yes, I said yes to the snake because there's a potential of the snake hanging out. There could be a snake right behind me and somebody says you can't see it. Does not mean it doesn't exist. So the exploration of the snake that exists that you cannot see is a fundamental idea of looking for the mythic, and you look for the mythic, you're looking for stories. And the exploration of that which is mythic and not logical and is completely unreasonable. Am I going too fast?
No.
Okay. And that was completely unreasonable is a large part of trying to understand the fundamentals of who we are, why we are, and the mythology of how we are created and destroyed. And very much a large part of why we are destroyed. Because in the idea of destruction actually lies all the idea of creating stories. Destruction.
You had a series on a TED Talk, I believe, called We Are the Stories We Tell Ourselves. Can you go and discuss that?
So imagine that you're floating through life. Imagine you have a parachute, right? You're hanging from the parachute, floating through life. Life's okay. You know, there's storms, but you have controls. You know, you pull a bit of string here, you go right, pull a bit of string here, and you go left, go forward, and sometimes there will be storms and you'll get buffeted, but you're confident of that parachute. It's a parachute of yourself. That's your parachute. But you continue floating and you kind of work it through. And then somebody comes to you and says, well, why don't you look up? And you say, well, there's no reason for me to look up. Why should I look up? You're uncomfortable. I know. Do you? Look up. And you look up and there's no parachute. There never was. And so you scream and you say, oh, I'm falling. And somebody says, you're only falling if there's somewhere to fall to. But if there's nothing to fall to, then there was nothing to fall off from. So you're not falling off anything. You're not falling into anything. You don't have a parachute. Who are you? Who am I? And I said, well, now you're asking the right question. So when we came in, an attempt to come to terms with that is the unknown was a fundamental basis of storytelling. So we created mythic characters. We created a mythic place from where we fell off. And we created mythic gods, mad gods, that pushed us. And we created mythic creatures and gods that would buffet us and try and rip our parachute of the self apart. And we created mythic gods that would save us and hold us. At the time of death, we created heaven. And if we were good, we created hell. And all these were stories that we told ourselves because we were yearning to come out and touch that which is unknown because we were uncomfortable with the unknown. And my contention is that till all of us become the Buddha, we'll continue to tell stories to come to terms with the fact that we don't know.
How was that transition from India to Hollywood, making Elizabeth? You went from making a movie, say, for $1 million to all of a sudden $24 million.
Well, $1 million's a lot of money in India. When I shot Bandit Queen, I found that 24 million wasn't a lot of money in England when I shot Elizabeth a few years later. Money doesn't matter. It's such a relevant concept. I found that with 24 million, I couldn't do things that I could easily do in India. I mean, I had to cancel scenes. So my producers, and I was very honest about this. My producers had, one of them had a Maserati, the other had a Bentley. One of them also, I think, had a Ferrari. And when they said, you can't do these 2 scenes, I said, you know what, if you sell your cars, I can do these 2 scenes. And they thought I was joking. I was completely serious. And so when they came to me and talked about the budget, it said 24 million. I said, well, why isn't 24.6? Why is it 24? If everything is rounded up to a figure, then it does mean that it has actually no context. So the head of the studio was coming to see me to discuss the budget. He said, I'll go to Shekhar's office. He's a really nice guy. So I had a big sign printed right behind me which said, money is the biggest joke perpetuated against man. And it was like every time he was talking to me, there was this big sign behind him and he talked to me about budget. So, I do try and get fired all the time. So 24 million didn't actually get that much more.
How do you make sure that that doesn't influence you to make sure that the film stays in point?
By walking hand in hand with my best friend. Who's my best friend? Failure. Walk with failure all the time. Chat with failure all the time, because failure is a friend that you embrace and say, you could strike me any time and you're completely unpredictable. But without you, I would not climb the mountain if I didn't fear that I could slip off and die. If I knew I could climb it, if I knew I was going to get to it, why would I climb it? Why would anybody paint without the adventure of not being able to paint? So the unknown, failure, the concept of failure, the concept of unknown is a friend that you walk with hand in hand and embrace. He'll get you any time. You better treat him well or her well.
You talk about
pay for the bills. Failure. Take them out to dinner.
And I agree with that. You were here to celebrate your successes, but it's the failures that help you learn and
also, when you fail, you have more time to yourself. Nobody wants to talk to you. You reflect more. When you're successful and you make a successful film, you don't reflect. You don't reflect at all. You get it away. You in some kind of euphoric world of immortality. Failure is completely immortal. Super success is completely immortal in a complete lie. So, failure.
Can you talk about working with actors and working with someone who I really admire, Kate Blanchett? I mean, she's. I remember she came for a screening and a Q&A, and I meet a lot of actors, and I just told her I was so honored to meet her, just because she just resonates off the screen.
Yeah, actors are probably the reason I make films. I live vicariously through them. I love them. My first job with actors is to get them to trust themselves. Don't trust me. I mean, most actors, most of us have great abilities to act, to perform, and most of us can't perform and don't perform. 2 reasons. A, because we haven't owned that discipline. But that's skill. So how do you go beyond skill? Beyond skill is the ability to peel the onion layers of yourself away. Beyond skill is the ability to be vulnerable. Because if you're not vulnerable, you can't turn out a great performance. It's your vulnerability and the exploration of yourself, and then to be able to reveal yourself. So how do you reveal yourself till you look around yourself and say, I trust this little bubble that I'm in, and that's my job, to create that bubble. And I trust myself that what comes out when I reveal myself is the truth. Not skill, but just the truth. Not skill, but honesty. To know that what comes out of me could be completely honest. And then you have a catchment area that is your skill that can turn that honesty into the particular discipline of what you do, which in this case is acting. Could be music, could be architecture, could be poetry. Now, that vulnerability, that ability to be completely honest through vulnerability, I believe, is an access point to something beyond yourself. But I think that's where Einstein went. I think that's where A.R. Rahman goes. I think when he wrote the Requiem, that's where Mozart went. And I've seen Kate Blanchett go there. A lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of discipline, huge amounts of preparation, but at that moment, an access point to something that is slightly beyond yourself, something that is called creativity, something that is called genius. And I will argue forever with people that genius does not lie inside you. Genius is your ability to be vulnerable, to be humble, to be honest, and have that access. But you need the discipline to understand what you've accessed. If you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the training, if you don't have riyaz, which, classical Indian composers and singers, they will for the whole lives play 5-6 hours a day, because what they don't want to do is find it for that one moment. But that moment has to be stretched in time for a lifetime of playing the sitar, for example.
Does that vulnerability also go for the director, or is that just a?
Oh no, it goes for the director. Completely goes for the director, because the director I look for moments when I'm writing a script that I can sit and cry. Then I know I'm crying. Why am I crying? Because it's right? Because it's wrong? Because it's chaotic? No. Because something in me has stirred an honest reaction. I trust it. And I prepare as if I'm going to battle. Obsessive about preparation. And then when I get on my way to the set, I try and create, if I'm not already panicked, which is pretty usual, but if I'm not already panicked, I'm uncomfortable. So I create panic. I tell myself, quite honestly, I convince myself that today's the day they're going to find that I've been conning the world for 20 years, that I don't really know my job. I completely don't know my job. And sometimes if that doesn't work, I listen to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. That's completely chaotic music. In somewhere there's a harmony in that chaos. And so when I go to the set, again, I'm back in the schizophrenia of everybody saying, "Sir, what's the shot?" Then I have to look very bright and very affirmative and strong and knowing. Inside me, I'm just shocking myself into panic, saying, I know I prepared, but somewhere in all that preparation lies a lie of preparation, the untruth of being prepared. And within that, I have to find the truth of that moment, of what is, and that is something I just have to catch. I don't know. I mean, there's an actor here who's worked with me, whether they found me doing that consciously or not. I don't know. Saurabh is sitting right there. Saurabh, I don't know. Tell me, did you notice it, or did I just have a facade?
No, sir. I think I worked with you, my first film, and till date I say this, that we never got that experience. All the actors, there was something which we never felt that you are directing. But I still remember one moment when there's a scene.
Can you speak louder? Maybe
there was the scene in the film, which was a very sad scene, and me and Seema, we both performed the scene, and he just said that, why don't you smile and do the scene? And we were looking at each other, what is this pseudo kind of a thing, a sad scene performed with the smiles. But then he said one line. He said, it's the reminder of your relationship with that girl. It's a sad moment, but you are trying to remind that girl that, I'm the same man, and she smiles back. And that's how the scene goes, and it's a very sad scene. And I don't think that anybody till now touched us.